The Napoleonic era begins with Napoleon Bonaparte's rise to power as a general for the French revolutionary government. He married Josephine de Beauharnais in 1796, and days later led the French army when it invaded Italy. He took over reins of power in France in 1799 and was crowned emperor in 1804. Throughout this presentation, I will be briefly interrupting you to tell you some fun facts and a famous quote of Napoleon. So sit back and relax and enjoy the presentation. On November 9th, 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte and Abbé Sieyès pulled off a coup in France. They overthrew the current directory and replaced it with a new government, called the Consulate. Napoleon called his first 5 years of rule the Consulate. Sieyès and Napoleon both installed themselves as consuls. Through the popular, Napoleon became first consul. As first consul, Napoleon moved rapidly to institute order in France. He put down many rebellions in the French provinces and created a secret police led by Fouché. He centralized the government of various French departments under a system of prefects. Under Napoleon's direction, scholars organized all French law in a system called the Napoleonic Code, as pictured here. The code represented a comprehensive reformation and codification of the French civil laws. Under the old regime, more than 400 codes of laws existed and placed in various parts of France, with common law predominating in the north and Roman law in the south. The Revolution overturned many of these laws. Napoleon now claimed he only wanted peace. At the time, Austria was the only continental country that remained at war with France. On June 1800, Napoleon led the French army against the Austrians at the Battle of Marengo and emerged with a staggering victory. However, Napoleon was not universally loved. On Christmas Eve 1800, he was nearly killed by a bomb planted by conspirators wanting to restore the old Bourbon line of kings. In the picture, Napoleon is holding on to Ben Stiller driving away from the bomb that the conspirators planted. It's quote time! Here is one of the many famous quotes quoted by Napoleon.
You can do without God, but not without religion. If you had ever been on a battlefield, you would not believe in God either.
Though Napoleon was unreligious, in 1801 Napoleon signed a concordat with the Catholic Pope. This agreement smoothed over the problems between France and Rome the revolution has caused, in which the French state assumed all control over the church lands. But Napoleon did not give the property back, but he did make Roman Catholic the official religion of France. When the powerful and populous France fell under the control of the radical revolutionaries, the old regime and the other countries of Europe had good reason to be scared. For that reason, they made several attempts to band together to face the French revolutionary threat. But the British felt threatened when Napoleon started conquering lands far beyond France's borders, so the British took action. Great Britain renewed war with France in 1803, and Austria, Russia, and Sweden all joined Great Britain's attempt to take over France. Napoleon's people wanted to make his power permanent and hereditary. In 1804, the French people voted to declare France an empire. Napoleon became Emperor Napoleon, and his wife became Empress Josephine. Napoleon crowned himself and crowned his wife to show that he had the power and authority and was not given to him by anyone else. It's fun fact time! Did you know that the national flag of Italy was designed by Napoleon? Well, if you didn't, then now you know. Please stay tuned to another episode of the Fun Fact Time! Napoleon owned some land in the United States and was going to start French colonies on the land, but he did not like it. So Napoleon wanted to get rid of the territory, and quickly. So James Monroe and Robert Livingston from the United States decided that Napoleon might withdraw his offer at any time, and to wait for President Jefferson's approval might take months. So Livingston and Monroe decided to open negotiations immediately. By April 30th, 1803, they closed the deal for the purchase of the entire 828,000 square mile Louisiana territory for $15 million. In 1807, Portugal refused to follow the continental system because of the blockade Napoleon set up to isolate Great Britain from all of Europe and make Great Britain suffer. Portugal needed to trade goods with Great Britain, so Napoleon responded by sending armies into Portugal and Spain and drove out both the kings. He placed his brother Joseph as King of Spain. In the picture shown, Napoleon is on the right, is having a huge feast with his brother Joseph on the left after Joseph becomes King of Spain, so they decided to celebrate. The Spanish people did not like what Emperor Napoleon was doing with Portugal and Spain, and so they sent out an army led by Duke of Wellington to help the Portugal people rise up against the French Empire. This war is known as the Peninsula War and lasted till 1814. By 1809, Napoleon completely conquered Europe. Napoleon forced their former enemies, Austria and Prussia, to sign peace treaties while Russia and Denmark allied themselves with Napoleon. Napoleon also ruled the Netherlands and Spain and forced the Papal States to ally with Napoleon. Between 1809 and 1811, Napoleon's empire stood at its greatest extent. In 1809, Napoleon turned 40 and became concerned about his lack of hair. Hoping a younger woman would conceive more readily, he had divorced his wife Josephine and started looking for a suitable second wife. Napoleon found and quickly married Princess Mary Louise of Austria. In 1811, the new empress gave birth to a son, Napoleon II, known as King of Rome. Guess what time it is? It's time for another fun fact time! Napoleon only slept for minutes when he was in campaign and war. He could take a 5-minute nap and wake up fully refreshed. Wow, what kind of people do you know that can do that? By 1811, Napoleon's empire included nearly all of Europe except for the Balkans. Wherever he conquered, he put the Napoleonic Code into effect and introduced new military techniques throughout Europe. The French increased feelings for nationalism in the people they conquered. On December 31st, 1810, Tsar Alexander I withdrew Russia from the continental system and began trading openly with Britain. This made Napoleon very angry, and soon Napoleon sent his massive grand army of soldiers he picked to Poland, ready to force a bloody battle with the Tsar's army. The Grand Army consisted of over 600,000 troops, and it was a great threat as it waited on Russia's border. But the Russians did not attack. They fled more and more into Russia, and Napoleon's army followed. Napoleon soon captured Moscow, but by that time, the Russians already burned down Moscow. Napoleon was losing soldiers from sickness because they had no place to get away from the cold. The cold pretty much killed the Napoleon's army. Napoleon finally ordered a retreat on October 19, 1812. Napoleon hoped to make a speedy recovery to France with the help of his crotch rocket. But there was only one problem. The crotch rocket could not go through the Russian snow, so Napoleon had to ride a horse back to France with the remaining soldiers of the Grand Army. The news of the defeat spread quickly throughout Europe. Many countries and parts of the old regime decided to use this as an advantage and attack Napoleon and return the French throne. They attacked Paris on March 1814 and took back the French throne. After much negotiating, on April 4th, 1814, Napoleon finally was removed from the French throne by the Treaty of Fontainebleau. King Louis XVIII had been chosen to be the king and had a good sense not to try and return France to the way it was before the Revolution. On May 30th, 1814, Louis XVIII signed the Treaty of Paris, which constrained France to his 1792 boundaries. Napoleon requested to go to the United States after he was caught, but the British sent him to St. Helena, a small island in the South Atlantic. In 1921, Napoleon died there. In 1840, the British allowed the French to bring Napoleon's remains back to Paris, where you can still go visit him today at the St. Jerome's Chapel in Paris, France. St. Jerome's Chapel in Paris, France is pictured where Napoleon's body still lays today. Napoleon will always be remembered as a great ruler of France. He excelled in the military strategies they used and propelled the French to many victories. He will also be remembered in the achievements in the arts and the French literature. To this day, Napoleon made a never-ending impression on Europe. Thanks, and this presentation was made by yours truly, Cole Anothka.